Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this edition of Leap Project. I'm your host, Rex Bear, and tonight we have special guest, Pastor Paul Begley. Paul Begley Prophecy is dedicated to understanding today's world events from a biblical perspective. With more than 8,000 videos available to watch on YouTube, Pastor Begley has 126,000 subscribers, reaching 100,000 plus people a day. Also, Paul can be heard on Blog Talk, Roku, Livestream, mobile app, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms. Tonight, we will be discussing politics, current events, the elections, one world government agenda, also insider information Paul has on Planet X, or what is referred to as wormwood in the Bible. All of this is intertwined and written about thousands of years ago in the Bible, according to Pastor Paul. If you'd like to learn more about Pastor Begley, check out www.paulbegleyprophecy.com, also YouTube. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight here at the Leap Project, Paul. I know you're a very busy person and appreciate your time. How are you?
Hey, it's great to be here with you, Rex. It really is.
So how long have you had a presence online?
Over 6 years now. I've been every day, doing 5-6 YouTube videos a day. And I've been on YouTube for over 6 years, and I've been doing live broadcasting for over 5 years. And I just went on television. I've been on television the last 9 months. I'm on DirecTV, channel 367, every Friday night at 11:30 p.m. Eastern with The Coming Apocalypse, 30-minute show.
Okay, so The Coming Apocalypse, there's so many people out there today, Paul, that feel they're living in the end times, and they talk a lot about it could be global war, it could be Nibiru, Planet X, it could be some type of, comet or whatever. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know if anybody really knows the exact time, which is what the Bible says, but certainly there are a lot of correlations right now that I could say, wow, there's some serious stuff that's taken place, and maybe I should be prepared. So why did you get into ministries and such? What made you say, hey, I'm going to spend my life and put as much time as I can into waking people up and spreading the word about what I believe in?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. I've actually been preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ for 32 years. But for the first 26 years, I did not teach Bible prophecy at all. I would just say, hey, Jesus is coming back. You might want to get your life right with God. It was, I had a moment when I was praying about doing some evangelism. And I was in prayer, and I said, God, where would you like me to go? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to go about? Because I had been pastoring, and the Lord said, get a cup of coffee. Literally, I had this in prayer. Get a cup of coffee, turn on your camera, and visualize 1,000 people and talk about the current events and how they relate to Bible prophecy, and do that every day. And so I started doing it, thinking, well, first of all, I said, what's YouTube? I didn't even know what I'd heard people talk about YouTube, but I had never even checked out a YouTube video 6 years ago. So I went and I checked it out, and people were jumping off buildings and painting their face green. I said, what in the world? Why do I want to be on this? Are you serious? And I prayed some more, and the Lord said, do this. And so I started doing it. And then miraculously, Time Magazine wrote an article about me. And the next day I had 50,000 views. And I've never, on one video, and I never looked back again. It's been an unbelievable, amazing, really, tool of evangelism. And it's really waking up the people all over the world. People are waking up to the realization that we are truly living in very precarious times.
Well, and I remember a few years ago, I had the opportunity to speak with you, and one of the videos that you came out with, I think just a few days before we talked, was you were discussing the Bible, and then I think you started talking about the devil, and then all of a sudden the cross behind you falls off the wall. Do you remember that?
I sure do. I'll never forget that. I mean, like I said, in 32 years of ministry, I've never had seen a tangible object move. I had read books. I had talked to guys who've done exorcisms and deliverance. I've heard a lot of different things, but I had personally never seen anything that I would consider a paranormal event. And I can tell you what happened that day. I'm glad you bring it up, because my brother-in-law died the day before. I was at his bedside. He was dying with leukemia. And I sat there 12 hours with the rest of the family, and he died. And I prayed and prayed for him. He gave his life to Christ, but it was a horrible death and a horrible ending. So I was exhausted. So the next day, I'm doing YouTube videos the next morning, and I start talking about how they're changing the Bible. There's a new Bible that came out where they were removing the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost out of the Bible. And I was like, how can you do that? I mean, what in the world? Are you serious? And I was like, challenging the devil. And you can still see that video. It's on my YouTube channel. And I challenged the devil. And when I did, this crucifix, which weighed 4.5 pounds and was leaning at a 45-degree angle, it just come up off the wall. I mean, it just come up off the wall. It was one of the most freakish things I've ever seen. And there was no one else in the house. And so I thought, I knew who it was. I knew it had to be the devil. I was challenging him.
He was letting you know he was listening.
Exactly. And you know what it did? When this happened, I was stunned, and I was going to delete the video and just forget it and never tell anybody. All right. And as I got ready to push the button, the Holy Spirit said to me, no, upload this. Don't delete it. Upload it. And so I did. And it's been that video, even though it's not my most viewed video, it's been seen a couple 100,000 times, but it's been the one video that has brought more people to Christ than any video I've ever done. It's unbelievable. So there's a lot of folks who do know there's a dark side out there. They do know that there's a demonic presence. And when they seen that Satan was real, then you got to know God's real also.
There's a lot of books that were taken out of, certain context and out of the Bible, I guess you could say, out of the specific Abrahamic canon, like the Book of Enoch and other mystery books, they call them, and, certain teachings. So do you think that the Book of Enoch is just as legit of a reference as the rest of the books in the canon of the Bible, or do you think it's something different?
You know what? That I've read it, and the Bible does talk about the Book of Enoch. I mean, we have our 66 books in the canon, in the Bible, and yet there's 2 books that it mentioned. There's actually 5 books in the Bible that are mentioned that are not in our Bible. At the time that the canon was put together, the Book of Enoch had not been located. I think they didn't actually find that to maybe around 1843 or something like that. When I read it, it's very interesting, and it could very well be the Book of Enoch that's missing. It could very well be. It gets into the angels, and the angels, teaching, the fallen ones teaching about war and all that. Well, in reality, the demon spirits do have the ability to manipulate people, and they do all the time. And of course, the angels, the angelic host of God, also have the ability to protect us and to go before us. So, if you think about the full concept of the Book of Enoch, it could very well be the book. And so I don't know for sure, but it could be. It could be.
Like the Nephilim that are talked about, the fallen angels that had sex with women here on earth, that, talks about how that was bad. Do you think that there's some truth to that, some validity?
Absolutely. I mean, when you read the book of Genesis in the 6th chapter, it talks about that the sons of God looked upon the daughters of men and saw that they were fair, and they went in unto them, and they bore them children that were giants, men of great renown. And it even says in Genesis 6 that these giants, or these fallen ones, these Nephilim, were before and after the flood. Well, we know this is true because when the children of Israel crossed Jordan with Joshua and went into Canaan, they had to fight giants that made them look like grasshoppers. They were probably, it's estimated, some biblical scholars think 13 to 14 foot tall. We know there were giants. They had to defeat the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Moabites, the Amaleks. And we know that the Philistines had giants because David killed Goliath, and he was 9'6". So there's no question. There's no question. I've studied this. So it's so when you read the book of Enoch, it does go along with what the Bible already says in Genesis chapter 6.
Now, if we were to go and look at the current times that we're in now, there's so much speculation of World War III, the dollar collapse, FEMA camp roundups, Mark of the Beast implants. I watched a video that was about 7 minutes yesterday that showed dozens of these new Walmart, basically kiosks. They're not Walmart kiosks, but they're at Walmart. and they're for medical purposes. They're called solo health stations, and underneath these stations, there's this little RFID scanner. And obviously now credit cards, driver's licenses, so many different items are tracked via RFID chip, and now they've also got the Verichip, which the original name of that corporation that came out with the Verichip, which I think is kind of funny, was called Digital Angel. Do you remember that?
Absolutely. And I mean, this is a digital angel's not a good thing. I mean, there's no question that Walmart, first of all, Janet Napolitano came out with a video on behalf of the Department of Homeland Security in 2010, where she said that the Department of Homeland Security was teaming up with Walmart to help bring a better secured homeland, and that if you ever see anything in your community that's suspicious, you can go tell your local Walmart manager. I mean, this isn't a video, it's a government video. So Walmart has already been in bed with the government's ultimate security plan. That's why when you hear about the tunnels under the Walmarts, you hear about the fake closings of 5 Walmarts for plumbing reasons, and they got security. And I have seen these kiosks you're talking about. They do have a scanner on the right side, at the lower right side, and it serves no purpose. The kiosk, that scanner for your hand, which it's what I assume it's for. You put your right hand under it. It serves no purpose. It serves no other purpose. I even went up to the pharmacy at the Walmart and said, "Can you tell me what that's for?" And yes, they talked me through this whole thing you're talking about, and it was supposed to help you understand the Obamacare bill. But I said, "Yeah, but what is the scanner for on the right side there at the low?" And so he goes, I don't know what you're saying." I said, "No, seriously, there's a scanner." So I finally got the pharmacist to come out from behind the counter, and I walked over and said, "Show me what I'm supposed to do with this. I don't know what to do." And he puts his hand right there and he sees it and he says, "I'm gonna have to call the corporate office and see if I can get some information." And in other words, it's like it's there, Rex, for a time yet to come. You know what I'm saying?
Another thing too, for those that have an opportunity to listen to this broadcast, there was a show that I did a while back with a gentleman by the name of Zoltan Istvan, and he's a futurist. He's also running for president this year for the Transhuman Party. And first of all, I just want to say he's a really nice guy, super nice gentleman, very intelligent, and I can appreciate people being able to, have different ideas and such. However, what he talks about is this future of everybody having literally nanobots running inside of their brains, to where if you're a pilot and you're thinking about killing yourself with everybody on the plane, there's going to be this fail-safe mechanism that's going to tell yourself, no, you can't do that. So that's justifiable to some people, feeling that, okay, well, if they're going to be put in a position of power, let's have some type of fail-safe mechanism so they can't hurt other people. And as frightening as that sounds, there's a lot of speculation that this nanotechnology exists today because they found certain fibers that can be constructed via nanotech. I call them little nano goblins, basically. So piggybacking off of different bacteria and viruses and stuff like that. So he's also been marked with he's taken that chip. He did a tour and he went and got that chip implanted into his hand. And so if he goes to the store, he just swipes his hand, and people look at him and they come up to him, and, especially Christians, obviously, and they say, well, that's the mark of the beast. And then there's other people that go up and say, man, that's pretty cool. How do I get one of those? So there's definitely that push. And I just have noticed that push started over 15 years ago, really. I mean, it started hitting the mainstream news, and it hasn't really taken off like they thought it would. So maybe they're using phones right now more as a tracking mechanism because it's got a microphone and a video camera and everything else built into it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're exactly right. The phone is attached to the hand. So they've got the GPS. You can pay your bills with your phone. You can take pictures, make videos. You can text. You can Skype. I'm doing this interview with you with a phone. Okay. So I mean, Skyping it. So everything is so advancing. It's the office. My phone is my office almost. So what they've done is they've got us to the point we're so attached. We have to have this. And then they can take us to the next level. Now I can tell you, I did a conference down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida last year. I was speaking there, and a government agency employee came to the conference, introduced herself, and said, I want to share something with you. There is already a microchip that not only will serve any purpose, it can be a GPS, it can use as a debit card, it will hold all your medical records, can be stored on it, everything about you. And it also is biometric. it won't, if you have to implant it into the human being that it's designed for. If the person they put it in, it has to be that DNA. So, and also your iris in your eyes, when you look at a camera, it tells that chip, it shows that chip who you are. So in other words, if someone else stole your chip out of your hand, cut it out of you and try to use it, it won't work. It has to be in the person that it's made for. She said, we've been testing it and testing it. It is ready to go. It is 100% impossible, theft proof. With that in mind, she said, you're going to see a rash of thefts, identity thefts, constantly going on in the public, and there will be an outcry for some kind of a system to protect ourselves. And that's where this technology will start to be introduced. So it's all, I say this is what I say, Rex. If you look at the Bible and the mark of the beast, there has to be some kind of a system, because you can't buy or sell without this system. But it involves also the Antichrist spirit, where you have to deny Christ, to be a part of this. So what's going to happen is, and I've been saying this, is the technology is now catching up with the prophecy. The technology is finally reaching the prophecy. In other words, it can be implemented. It's going to take more, though, than just the technology. You have to convince people that it is the thing to do, the only thing to do, or the right thing to do. And that's what's going on right now, as you're seeing this Antichrist, one world globalization, new world order type movement, is to bring people to the thought process that, we need to do something. Chris Christie, when he was running for president, said we need to come up with a way to FedEx track people, to FedEx people. So it's very, very, very important.
Do you think that within the next, let's say, 10, 15 years, there's a good chance they'll actually be able to create laws that make people take these chips or become enemies of the state?
Oh, absolutely. It's coming. It's absolutely coming. Let's talk about the United Nations Agenda 2030, okay? And they call it now global sustainability. Now, what's taking place here, and they brought the Pope in. They brought him in to bless the Obama doctrine. They brought him in to address the Congress. And then he went to the United Nations to virtually bless the United Nations Agenda 2030. And that global sustainability means this. The world needs, what they're going to preach to us is this. The world needs to operate with the mentality of what's best for the greater good, what's best for humanity. And if we don't do it, we can't globally sustain ourselves. So that message is in a process. It's going to be being preached in our colleges, our universities. It's going to be started from the very young. Everybody's going to have to become part of the green movement. And as this moves, we're going to see laws changing. We're going to see, this is what this battle's about right now. This political turbulence is all about the power, the establishment that sits on both sides of the aisle in the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. The reason they've come out of the closet, Rex, they say we are the establishment, and we don't care what the voters say. All right, you got to take one of our candidates. You can't have one of yours. You got to pick one of ours. And if we have to change the rules, we'll change the rules. But we're going to look. This thing, they can smell this new world order. They can taste it. So yes, there will be laws change, and that is part of how this mark of the beast system starts being implemented.
And to think of a system where there's a lot more green type technologies, less pollutions, more recycling, that's fantastic. I think that that's a great idea. And as a matter of fact, that could be an entire new revolutionary industry. Instead of the industrial age, it could be the, green age, in a sense of where we've got technologies now that we can create energy from the solar panels, wind panels, other things that are out there, magnets, etc., things that I don't even know about, that there's scientists and very smart people that do. Well, let's take this technology and use it to create balance and harmony, because that's a great idea. I can certainly see, with all the fracking sites and oil rigs and all the nuclear reactors that are next to fault lines and stuff, that doesn't make a lot of sense. There's other alternatives that we could use and create jobs and give people good lives to work on that, and decommissioning some of these giant nuclear facilities are getting ready to go parabolic, So instead, though, we're just okay. Well, let's give more money to these crippling plants and people that just like to feed off of the system, or what I call dark ecstasy, with these pharmaceutical companies that don't create drugs to help people, but to kind of give them a little bit of a Band-Aid and then cause other problems where they go back to their doctor and they get prescribed more medication, etc. So it's certainly this twilight zone reality that we live in. And I'm thinking about the work that you do and all the people that you get out and have an opportunity to reach. It's fascinating that there's so many people now today that are really starting to wake up, and I applaud them for that. How many people a day do you think you reach out to and have an opportunity to show them what's really going on?
Well, my YouTube numbers are, I'm averaging over 100,000 views a day collectively with all, with my videos. So, and of that, about 60,000 of them are whatever the videos I do that day, okay, and the other 40 will be the follow-up. So we're reaching about 100,000 people a day just on YouTube, and that's a mixed bag, though.
That's fantastic.
It is good numbers. I mean, we've done over 83 million views, yes, but it is a mixed bag. I mean, it's not all. There's curiosity seekers. There's people that are thinking this through. There's haters, But overall, what I have seen, Rex, over the last 6 years, is a tremendous groundswell of people around the world who are dissatisfied with federal governments. And I'm not just talking about the United States now. I'm talking about especially Europe. They're upset. They're confused about the migrant issue. They're not sure how Fukushima. I mean, you just said it. Nuclear plants setting on fault lines. Fukushima has been melting down for 5 years. Radiation levels in the Pacific Ocean continue to climb. Last year we had record earthquakes over 6.0 and record volcanoes eruptions in a single year, the biggest ever for both of those categories. We're seeing now clusters of asteroids going by the Earth as we move into this galactical belt. And then you've got the Planet X theory. Is it really pulling on the Earth and creating now these sinkholes and these thunderbolts and more meteors that are following? So having said all that, you have a very broad, a large sector of the population that are very cognizant to the fact that we are living in a world that is not stable. And that's where demonizing starts, where people start blaming one another and other individuals and cultures, and that's what creates a lot of this animosity. Is really as people are nervous. They're not high. They can't deny it anymore. Everyone knows we've got a problem. We got 7 billion people. How many resources do we have? How are we all going to get along? ISIS is chopping off Christians' heads all over Iraq and Syria. So, how do we make this work? And I think that's why we're waking them up. We're waking them up. People are starting to wake up, come to the realization of the times we're living in, and they're seeking for answers. And I think it's programs like yours, programs like mine, and others on alternative media. The reason that the numbers are growing is because the interest and the desire for answers is increasing.
And when you talked about earlier the climate change and stuff like that, when the government comes out and tells regular people, okay, you can only use 5 gallons of water per family per day, you have to stay in this part of the world, you can't drive a car, you can only use this much electricity, that's when things get out of whack. Because it's funny how those kind of rules they're wanting to put into place. And when I'm saying I'm referring to the people at the top levels that are making the funds behind the scenes because of these laws that benefit because of it. Just follow the money. So there was an article that came out with Daily Mail, and it says how 16 ships create as much pollution as all the cars in the world. So just common sense stuff like, okay, well, if these 16 ships create as much pollution as the rest of the cars out there transporting oil, well, how about coming up with a more efficient way to transport oil instead of going after the regular people?
Exactly. Exactly. It's common sense, common denominators. We need to look at where the largest amount of the carbon footprint comes from. Now, I can tell you, you brought up a great point. Last year, I went to the National Mensa Convention, not because I'm a Mensa, because I'm not a okay. They're probably looking at me like, what's this guy doing here? Are you serious? But I was there because my wife's a Mensa, okay? My wife is. She's one of the top 1% IQ in the world. So because she goes, I get to go. Well, here's what's cool. You get to listen to some of the brightest professors and minds in the world, and you go to these little 1-hour lectures, and they're telling you, they're identifying what they believe is the biggest problems of the earth, and they're floating questions to these folks like a think tank. Can you guys think about these problems we have? And the one problem they were pitching was this. They said that the footprint of a cow, the carbon footprint to feed a cow, and the cow has to eat the grass, and all of the energy it takes to keep a cow fed, that carbon footprint is too much to continue to sustain this global a world of people that need to eat. So they looked at cattle, they looked at pigs and hogs, and said, look, we've got to come up with a new way to feed people without using any livestock, a cheaper way. And so they went to grub worms. Now, this is unbelievable, but I heard this time and time again, that a grub worm, which could be called a wood shrimp, that they could plant, that literally grow billions of grub worms in small amount of space and hardly have any carbon footprint, and there would be a new way to feed the world because they've got protein and what have you. So what's happening is there's going to be a major change in philosophy of how people are fed, how people are going to receive water, who they're going to prioritize who gets what and why, because you have to always remember it's always for the greater good. And that's part of the United Nations ambitious agenda. When they say it's called 2030, is because by the year 2030, they want oil production, fossil fuel production, to be less than 50% of what it is now, even though the population will go over 8, maybe 8.5 billion people. So there's going to be a definite change of philosophy, and it's going to affect our everyday lives. I don't know about going to starting eating wood shrimp. I'm struggling with that, but this is where they're going.
Well, another thing that really blew my mind the other day, I had never really thought about it. When I found out how much water it takes to produce a pound of wheat, a quarter-pound hamburger, a pound of bread. Do you know it takes 150 gallons to produce a quarter-pound hamburger? 150 gallons of water. So take that and times that by 7 billion people, and if there's some long-term droughts, or if it gets to the point to where it's kind of like this Dune society. I don't know if you've seen that old sci-fi movie. I'm showing my age here, but it's just kind of frightening to think about. So maybe with that combined with how much it takes to get this product from China or from overseas or something like that, then those are other possibilities you got to put into play. And well, why don't we kind of be a little bit more self-sufficient and produce some of our own foods and maybe set up a little garden in the back or something like that if you got a little bit of land somewhere. I think there's just a lot of options that we could take as people to create a much more healthy lifestyle as well. I'm out here in Texas, Paul, and great people out here, and a lot of them are extremely overweight. And I think to myself, I feel bad for them. I see people that have to hobble around at restaurants serving people and having to walk sideways through tables because they're so big. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way that it's so easy to go out and buy a quarter pounder with French fries and the chemicals that they put in that food to literally hook you on going there, even though it doesn't taste that good. You think it does because of the stimulation of the chemicals.
You're exactly right. I mean, it's not even food anymore. I mean, I don't even know what they're serving. McCrickets. But to your point, the chemicals, our body can't even process it. It wonders what it is eating and says, here, I can't deal with this. Let's just store it and deal with this later. And that's kind of what's been happening to the human race, especially the Americans. I know I travel a lot, Rex. And when I go to Jamaica and I speak there, everything's organic. All the food's organic. It tastes delicious. Literally, strawberries, mangoes. I mean, ackee, which is their favorite thing with swordfish. Everything they eat is just unbelievable, brilliant taste. Same thing when I go to Israel. Okay, anywhere you go, but in America, the same foods, you taste it after you spend a week or 2 weeks in one of these other nations. You come back and it's like, what is this? It's plastic, or is this even real? And the Americans are huge, and all the other nations you go to in Europe or in Asia, I mean, Asia is certainly, or the island people, they're all thin, they're all healthy, and they're eating organic food. Now, to your point, if we here in America started to eat more of our own organic food, and we started to, that would become the culture of this country. And this is where Trump gets beat up, because what he's saying is he's a nationalist who says, look, we need to have borders, protect our borders so that we are not overrun with a lot of different folks. And number two, we need to produce our own stuff and sell it among ourselves and eat it ourselves and become more self-sufficient, because it's costing a ton to bring this. Do you realize that 75% of all the beef and chicken in America is owned by the Chinese? So we grow them here. We have to ship it to China. They process it, and then they ship it back. Now, by the
Who knows what
time,
they actually put in it too,
well, I
Paul?
mean, imagine a chicken. What are you going to shoot that thing with so much formaldehyde? By the time you got to get it to China, it's on some slow boat. You don't know if the refrigeration's working or not. Okay, it gets there, they chop it up, they process it, throw some more chemicals in it. It slow boats it back. It shows up at one of the major processing centers. They throw some breading on it, throw it in a box. It shows up at your door. The stock boy went home that night. He didn't put it in the freezer. It's on your shelf. I mean, it's insane what we're eating. Are you serious? It's insane.
There's been a couple of times over the past 3 years that I've gone to Applebee's, and both times I've gone there, I felt like I had a food hangover. I mean, I just felt gross.
Right.
And I was just going to say, it's probably because all the stuff and the chemicals and preservatives and product that they put in there to kind of make you addicted as well.
Oh, absolutely. And we know McDonald's does it, and we know that almost all the fast food and almost all the restaurants, they may not know this. The individual restaurant manager, I'm sure, doesn't know this, but as this processed food is being done and they send it out here to all the restaurants and what have you, you think you're getting a hot cooked meal, and you think it's good for you, it's nutrition. You look at the menu and it says only 714 carbs on this deal. It's healthy choices. But the real truth is we're eating imitation. It's imitation. It's not real. Okay. And so, to your point, and that's also going on in a religious world. The Bible, part of the reason the crucifix flew off the wall, is I was actually doing that video talking about how they were literally removing the Word of God from the main course that's being served from the pulpits across America. And what's happened is pastors are telling me they're no longer preaching from the Bible. They say, oh, I still use it as a reference, but we're going a different direction. And what's happening is people go in and they go out, and it tastes kind of good, but what are they eating? What's the substance? Do they know what's really going on around them? And I think that's why I do what I do 6 days a week, is to send a message that this is real. We're living in a real world. It's got major problems. The Middle East is in total madness. The financial institution's a facade. It's not real. I mean, I remember the .com days with the in Wall Street, and everybody was doing an IPO based on potential, not on performance or profit. And I would tell my wife, I'd say, this is going to bust. This can't survive. You can't just keep you can't prop this up forever. At some point, and now it's the debt. America's almost $20 trillion in debt. We are living in a fantasy world. At some point, this comes home to roost if we don't start to correct the issue.
Now, I've got a question that I'd like to ask you as far as the fast food. There's been numerous articles about how human DNA has been found in fast food and different products, junk food type products. As a matter of fact, if you just go into a search engine like Google, type in human DNA found in fast food, there's 851,000 results that come up. And on the first page alone, I'm looking at titles that say McDonald's exposed for using human meat. Fast food burgers probably contain human DNA. Not a hoax. McDonald's uses human meat. Must watch. Underground market for human flesh. Now, I've heard down the grapevine that these giant factories that produce these meats that are then cut up and put into these nice little packages for people to go, oh, look, I've got this yummy Happy Meal, is a place where these demonic, wicked forces or people that are a part of these just horrific murders and stuff like that can put these victims in these fast food places and, hey, well, there's no more evidence right there because people are eating it. Have you ever heard that theory? And if you have, do you think there's any validity to it?
I've kind of just heard rumors of that. I don't know if hey, there's no doubt, the mob or somebody has disposed of people in different ways. But I think I'm concerned about what's coming out of the abortion clinics. If we start talking about human DNA being found, I'm a little more concerned about where all those body parts are being sold and just who all are buying. That becomes more of a greater concern for me, and I don't know exactly. I mean, look, we know that in some of the It enhances the taste of chocolate, and it changes. It actually causes water, certain bottled water, to be more addictive and more desirable. I mean, these are tests, and we know some companies that are definitely been involved in this, and they're trying to back out and get attorneys and do all kinds of things. So I think that's where you're finding this. I think this is one way. I'm not going to say it's the only way. You have a point. Your point may be very, very true, and that would be the most saddest thing in the world. But I think that the human DNA is coming from some of these abortion clinics and some of that being sold.
And you talk about religious and spiritual matters. If that was actually taking place, if, these, I guess you'd call them warlocks at the top levels that think that they're gods or whatever, decide to do these certain rituals or something like that, and then they did something, I mean, they could use food as a form of warfare, spiritual and physical, correct?
That's exactly right, and there's no doubt about it. And these warlocks we're talking about, and these wizards, these are involved in satanic ritual abuse. And I just recently had a guest on by the name of Russ Dizdar, who's for 30 years has actually had to minister. He goes on crime scenes where there's been murders and slaughters and there's been sacrifices, and he's worked with the police departments in Ohio and Pennsylvania, and he's been on these, literally seen these, been to the evidence, seen what's been going on. And there's no question, when you start talking about the Illuminati, when you start talking about the real Luciferians, human sacrifice and human consumption, this goes all the way back. We can go take this all the way back to the Aztecs. We can take this back to the Egyptians. Paganistic worship has been more than just sacrifice, but it's eating the heart right out of people. Matter of fact, we've seen this from ISIS. ISIS has even cut people's hearts out and eat them, and right on the battlefield. This is a wicked, demonic. It's part of the end time. This is your Nephilims. You want to know? This is the corrupting of the flesh that we've talked about in the Bible, in the book of, if you want to talk about the book of Genesis chapter 6, or even as you mentioned, the book of Enoch. I mean, there's no question that cannibalism. I mean, Papua New Guinea. I mean, there's still tribes that do this, but we don't have to look for just African tribes somewhere in the darkest jungles. We just go to Washington and slip into one of the secret societies, and we'll find the very thing going on. Same thing.
And if you look at some, most people that are a part of a secret society, whether it be the Freemasons or the Rosicrucians or some type of secret mystery order, they're really good people. I mean, they give you the shirt off their backs, and they're just looking for other like-minded people, and they want to expand their minds. And then obviously you've got these people kind of behind the scenes that I guess have the money and power and use their influence through people that are not knowing. I mean, I talked to several high-ranking Freemasons here on the show a few months ago. They're called the Masonic Roundtable. And I asked them about their spiritual beliefs and religious beliefs. And they all had different beliefs. That, only one of them believed in deism. And that's what some people speculate is the overall consensus of the archetype of people that are Freemasons is, well, they're, all a part of deism, which if you're a deist means that God was here at one point, he made this system, but then he took off. So now you can do whatever you want with it is kind of the overall essence of that in a nutshell. So anyway, with that said, if you look at the society today as a whole, I mean, it certainly does look like they're pushing this very dark Luciferian agenda. You've got the TV shows out there now called Lucifer. You've got actors and movie stars and sports people that say they sold their soul to the devil, and the MK Ultra programs and stuff that have compartmentalized people's minds. There's a lot of dark stuff going on, and I wonder if it's always been like that. Now they're just kind of throwing it in our face more.
Yes, the answer is yes. It's always been going on. The Luciferian rise of the Antichrist, Homo Satanas, Satan in human flesh, the son of perdition that talks about in Thessalonians. This rise of the Antichrist of the end days, the beast in Revelation 13. This is ancient. This is from the garden. This is the descendants of the Nephilims. This is the seed of Satan, and these paganistic worshipers, secret groups that operate. They are all about a one world government with a one world religion that is anti-Christ, one world system, one world currency. And so now that we're into this 6,000th year, let's say, of our human existence from the creation, let's take a look we can take a look and see now that what's happened is the urgency by Lucifer himself to arrive on the scene and be accepted by the masses is so high that this is why the Illuminati are getting bolder and bolder. Halftime show of the Super Bowl. You're going to have Katy Perry ride in on a beast. And the image, you're going to have Madonna sacrifice herself before 15 men in horns, like she's on an altar. You're going to see more and more movies and more sitcoms and shows that are on that are going to be glorifying Lucifer and the Luciferians, and you've got Penny Dreadful, and you've got all of this. I mean, this has been going on for a long time, but the intensity now, in your face, here we come, and acceptance of it. The acceptance of it is really what you're going to see now. Big push.
Now let's talk about the possibility of a vaccine or some type of medicine or psychological conditioning to get somebody's faith, to evaporate somebody's faith, to make it dissipate where they really don't have it anymore. They just want facts and numbers and data. I learned about the fun vax several years ago, where there was actually a video that I watched that showed these supposedly people at the Department of Defense and the Pentagon that were sitting in a classroom type setting watching somebody do a presentation on a whiteboard, and he was talking about how they created this new vaccine that was basically some type of technology that would piggyback off of bacteria, and it would get latched into people's brains and literally disconnect the God gene, they call it, the gene that creates faith. And you look at society now, just what it was 20 years ago with the religion aspect, at least in Western culture, and it seems like there's really just not nearly as much, Christian-based faith in Western culture. And I'm wondering if not only the media has, obviously the media has a big part of it. I'm also wondering if there's something behind the scenes like that type of fun vax or something similar to it that can be sprayed via aerosol or something that's made it even worse and more difficult for people to break out of what I call the matrix.
It's a fascinating concept just thrown out there. I mean, there's no question that there's so much distractions in Western culture today, and there's been a soft oppression of Christianity. I mean, don't say Merry Christmas no more, okay? It's not politically correct.
Yeah, it's Xmas now.
Yeah, Xmas. Churches are now, and I know this, notice this, churches that are being built, new churches or older churches, getting new steeples, no cross on top. It might be offensive, okay? So there's been the President of the United States stands up and says, we're no longer a Christian nation. And he's the leader of the free world, the free Western world. So then what happens? That trickles down through Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all across Europe, where Judeo-Christian faith has always been strong. And all of a sudden, people start to hide and pull down the shades and don't put a bumper sticker out no more, and don't wear a cross to work, on your necklace, and don't say the name of Jesus no longer on network TV. As a matter of fact, the NFL even signed a players' union contract that the players can no longer give Jesus Christ credit. They can say God, they can say the man upstairs, they can say, a higher power. So there's this squelching of faith. And if also chemical enhancement to do that, look, the way they've genetically modified everything, then why not try to genetically modify our faith? I mean, if it's possible. I'm going to say this, though. The blood of Jesus Christ, you cannot penetrate. I mean, once people accept Christ, once they get Jesus Christ in their life, you cannot, no way, penetrate their faith by going through the blood of Christ. But for those who aren't saved, who have not accepted Christ yet, then it's all fair game. And there's no protection. There's no guarantee. And so I wouldn't rule anything out. I think it's possible.
Let's talk about also the current events that are taking place today with hundreds of thousands of refugees going into Germany, Sweden, Switzerland, other European countries. There's a lot of chaos out there right now. You bring in different cultures from around the world onto one playground, and there's certainly going to be some issues there. It seems like there's a full transition into the way things are going now versus 20, 30 years ago. And why do you think the main purpose of that is taking place right now?
I think that the reason there is such an involvement is because, well, one thing, information is so readily available to people now that they can be persuaded quickly, or they can learn, or they pick up things quickly, and it really changes their ability to. Their minds can be changed quickly on just about any subject. I mean, you just Google it, and you can get a quick several different opinions at once. And I think it's just really is the information world we live in is so accessible that that we're seeing what we're seeing the things today.
Now, what do you think about the current release of the Panama Papers?
You know, great question. I mean, look, it's 11.5 million documents. And the initial report is, I mean, we got riots going on in, I think it's Iceland or Norway, one. I can't remember which country that is, where they're demanding their president to resign now. I think it's Iceland. And then you have Putin is being blamed. I mean, Vladimir Putin of Russia, he's really being, everybody's going after him. Yet his name is nowhere on any of the documents. A lot of his lieutenants are. Then we find out that the British bankers were really leading the charge to help set up these offshore accounts in Panama. And we still don't know who the celebrities are yet, the sports stars, the drug cartels out of Mexico, what politicians out of America, and is the Israelis involved? Are the big bankers, central bankers, who all's manipulating? What about the Chinese? I understand they're involved now. Some of Jinping's own family, President Jinping of China, his own family involved. So this scandal is so worldwide. It's so massive. And it's really not a scandal. I think maybe this is just the reveal. This is the pulling back of the blankets and the emperor's naked. And I think this is the new world order system just being exposed a little too early. And look, and this might be why, Rex, 125 bankers have died in the last 2 years, mysteriously, jumping off buildings, shooting themselves supposedly in the head with a nail gun 7 times.
Yeah, I mean, that's how most people kill themselves.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So there's something been going on. The secret's getting out. And I think it's just really the whole world market. It's gonna blow the thing up to the point nobody's gonna trust what we got, and there's gonna be an outcry for a brand new financial system, which might bring us to the mark of the beast.
So that is going to be the turning point. They're going to get everybody so in debt and just begging for a lot of people that haven't prepared are going to beg for food and mercy, basically. And their savior is going to be the mark of the beast.
That's exactly right. And then when people get that desperate, and they're already weak in their faith, and they've already been told to be quiet about it anyway, they cave. They cave, the whole world. And governments fold, and there has to be a brand new system to save the world. The beast is not coming to ruin your world. The message they're going to say is the beast is coming to save the world.
Well, and I talk to people from all spectrums, Paul, religious, those that practice the occult, those that claim to have been a part of MK Ultra type projects and stuff. And one of the underlying discussions that seems to more often than not be spoken about is this dark entity or energies behind the scenes that's trying to completely take over free will. And whether you're religious or non-religious, you should be able to see that there's an attempt to get rid of all free will. And it's kind of like being assimilated by the Borg. Some people speculate it's this artificial type intelligence that's gone rampant. You know, I've heard fallen angels. A lot of times it gets back to Lucifer. Yes, indeed. So I just think it's fascinating how even if you're not religious, that there's still those underlying tones that all kind of interweave together.
Exactly. You know, I wrote a book called The Mark of the Beast, RFID. And I brought it out 3 years ago, in which I took current world events and how they relate to Bible prophecy. And then I wrote an end-time apocalyptic scenario based on exactly what you're saying, that there was it's a breakdown, it's a lack of trust, it's people being inundated from every different direction, and it didn't matter, you know, whether you were a religious person or you were totally an atheist or you were a pagan worshiper or a Buddhist or a Hindu. It doesn't really matter. Everyone in the world can sense the finality that is coming. You can ask them all. You can ask them all. You can go back and read the prophecies of the Hopis and the Mayans. You can go back and study, all of the different ancient texts. And today, right now, no matter where people stand in their cultural understanding or their faith, and there is a recognition that the world is headed toward an apocalyptic conclusion. And they just now, so everybody wants to know, so if that's the case, what do we do? What should be my next move? And that's where all the deception comes in. Because Lucifer's got 100, he's got 100 different plans, and which one you want. And then, of course, we got us over here preaching, come to Christ, follow Christ. But, the world knows there's something happening. You just can't, it's a spiritual thing, but it's being manipulated and repackaged in many different ways.
Now, if you look at also if we were to say, okay, here's a timeline of events for those that are, for those that have an opportunity to listen to this broadcast, Paul, what would you say? Okay, here's a connection right now that you can read about in Revelations. We're at this time, and then the next step is going to be this. Give us a timeline, if you would, like a ladder.
It's a great question. If you'd asked me this question 30 years ago, we'd be saying, well, when you see this happen and when you see that happen, when you see armies start gathering around Israel, or if you see discussion about building the third temple, or if you see technologies advancing to the point that somehow they could do this mark system some way and make it work. So in other words, 30 years ago, if you was asked that question, it would always been, well, when you see this, this is this. But since you're asking it for today, here's the way we answer. Well, when you see the destruction of Damascus in Isaiah 17:1, well, it's happening. When you see the armies compassing Israel, there's 17 different armies surrounding the borders of Israel as we speak, and it seems like more keep coming to the Middle East in this madness.
Really? I hadn't heard that. Is there some reference points to that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, first of all, you just take, the armies compassing Jerusalem is actually found, Jesus said it in Luke chapter 21. Also, when Jesus said this, when you see, he says there'll be signs in the sun, the moon, the stars, distress of nations with perplexity. The sea and the waves start roaring. Men's hearts will start failing them for fear, for looking after things coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. All right, here's what we have. We have record earthquakes over 6.0, record volcano eruptions in a single year, sinkholes everywhere, swallowing cars and homes and what have you. The water levels, the Euphrates River is 80% dried up. That was also prophesied to happen in the last days. We are seeing droughts and famines, water levels depleting. We are seeing more diseases, ancient diseases resurfacing, asteroid clusters going by at record. Now, today, 3 asteroids. We had 3 near-Earth asteroids today. I mean, this is insane. So when you start to see all of these things happening, and talking about the 5 waves of energy, we're talking about Planet X, Nibiru. Is the gravitational pull causing all these more space meteorites and asteroids and all things? Why is the sun so volatile now? There's more sunspots now than ever, more solar winds, more solar flares than ever. So something's shaking the whole thing up. And so when you see, when someone asks me that question, I was like, where do we want to start? Because I could tell you, I could take you to several scriptures in the Old Testament, in the Gospels, and in Revelation. All of them are happening now. So it's a sense of urgency. And I'm not going to say that tomorrow Christ is returning, but I'm going to tell you that there are so many factors in play now that people better not be just taking vacation, just strolling through life and putting your stake out there somewhere. When, first of all, you don't even know if you're going to be alive tomorrow or not, any of us. So this is a realization. We're in the stretch run. We've made the last turn. The clock is nearing midnight, and it's really serious. People should really take accountability for their life and find their way to Jesus Christ.
Another thing, too, Paul, is I've had an opportunity to do a lot of research into Planet X. Some people call it Wormwood, Nibiru, Nemesis, the Winged Destroyer. There's a whole bunch of names for it. And one of my favorite people that I've talked to about this is Steve Olson with WSO. That's the Wormwood System Observer. And I'm still somewhat neutral on the subject of Planet X, but he's shown me a lot of good data. And there's definitely some stuff out there that points to there very well could be this Planet X. And combined with the mainstream news is coming out with an article every single day saying that they found Planet X, but they're saying it's way out there. So we're not going to see it for 1,000 years, of course, is what they're saying. What information do you have on Nibiru? And is Wormwood talked about in the Bible?
Absolutely. Wormwood is in the Bible. It's mentioned in the book of Revelation in chapter 8. The Bible tells us there's going to be 2 deep impacts. In Revelation chapter 8, it talks about a burning mountain that will hit the sea. It will wipe out 1/3 of the ships in the sea. It'll wipe out a third of all of the creatures of the sea. So this is going to be a major, major catastrophic event. It won't wipe out the whole world, but there will be a catastrophic event. Then the same chapter says, and also the earth will be hit with another deep impact. This one will fall like a burning lamp, like a star, and it's called wormwood. That it's the actual name of the comet or asteroid, whatever it is that hits it. It will be called wormwood, and the reason is it will affect, and it hits land because the radiation from it will affect the waters, the rivers, the streams. The drinking water will be bitter or poisonous from the radiation. So we know we're going to have two deep impacts, and that's where the word wormwood comes into play. And so that's another reason why men will start having heart attacks and falling over dead, because they come to the realization we're going to get hit and we can't stop it. And the fear of dread of this will hit people so hard because they have no hope. Because they've got, if you don't have hope in Christ, then you're on your own, and you don't want to be on your own when you have no way out, no safety net, nowhere to fall. And so men will die because of this, just out of fear. So that is in the Bible. It's in Revelation chapter 8.
And do you have any insider information on Planet X right now?
I do. I actually was 2 weeks ago. I speak to a lot of people, and I get approached by a lot of government agency, either current employees or have already retired. And I spoke to a man 2 weeks ago, 32 years. He's retired now from the federal government. He was in Intel, but it was Intel. He was on what was called the Nibiru project. His body's wrecked in pain, and that's why he contacted me, because he is dying, and he don't want to leave this world without telling somebody what he knows. He says the impact, what we're feeling from Planet X or Nibiru is such a strong gravitational pull. That's why we're seeing the earthquakes and the volcanoes and a lot of the things that are starting to happen, and a lot of these straight line winds. But he said soon you're going to see thunderbolts, lightning that will hit, that will literally just fry like an acre. I mean these things are going to really intensify because of the magnetic pull, and they're not coming down from the sky. The thunderbolt will actually come from the earth up. And look for this December of 2016, he says to me, for this to really start to kick in. It'll be reported. You'll see the Weather Channel talking about it. There'll be news reports, and you'll start to see this impact. It's part of the gravitational pull from Nibiru. Now I'm thinking, I asked the guy, he told me his name, told me where he lives, and says, if you want to come visit me, you can. Of course, I'm not going to reveal who he is at all, but I can tell you, when people get to a point where they know they're dying, then there's no reason to hold back. What are they going to do? Take his health care, So this is happening more frequently all the time, Rex. So it doesn't mean we're going to have an impact from Nibiru, but we're going to have an impact from at least two objects, according to the scriptures. And Planet X might be what causes that to happen. And we're getting, like you said, from 1992 until recently, NASA went silent on the subject, and now it's resurfaced. It's in the media. It's being talked about, and I'm being approached by people, and I realize that there's something going on. I would like to get the whole story, and I think about driving and actually seeing the individual before it's too late.
Yeah, that'd be a great opportunity and a service that you could do something good for everybody. That'd be fantastic, and I'd certainly like to hear about it. Now, there's also the current state of affairs with Trump and Hillary Clinton. Who do you think is going to win?
Wow. Well, Trump is going to have the most delegates going into the convention. Will he have 1237? I don't know. The establishment is going to try every way possible to get him to agree to give up and let someone else have it. But the people, I think, of America will see this so undemocratic that it will be almost an uprising, a revolution, a disaster. So I think Trump will win. I think it will be ugly. I think it will be just absolutely ugly, but I think he'll get the nomination. Hillary is going to get the nomination. This is the easiest nomination anyone ever got. All they did was run Martin O'Malley against Martin O'Malley got one person to come to a rally. I mean, I can get 10 people in 5 minutes. If you give me 5 minutes, I'll walk out here, I'll get 10 people. I mean, this is the worst candidate ever. And then the other guy they ran against her is a 74-year-old socialist, maybe a communist. So this was,
Right.
I mean, okay, this was a gift. This was a walk-on in, Hillary, you're the nominee. And she's going to barely struggle to get it. So it's not like the American people love her and can't wait for the rise of Hillary. It's just like, oh my God. I mean, I guess we all got to do this because she's the Manchurian candidate. That's who the establishment said we have to have. Where on the other side, the Republican, a lot of the people, the ground squad, it's not just Republicans. A lot of Democrats are jumping ship following Trump. He is the revolution. He's like the Bible's King Cyrus, been risen up to in the last day to do something great. Will he win? If he gets the nomination, he will win. If they steal it from him, Hillary walks into the White House.
So do you think that there's going to be different outcomes, or most likely the same things are going to happen anyway, depending on who gets in office?
Well, I know if Hillary gets in office, the New World Order just accelerates. I mean, there'll be an acceleration, a tremendous acceleration. It's Obama times 2. I mean, no one has a clue of the impact she has through the global initiative, the Clinton global initiative. All of her work out there as a Secretary of State, all of the connections. She's got 50 shades of green. She works with every Islamic group there is. It's just incredible. You're not even going to have a clue how fast the acceleration toward the New World Order will happen if she's elected. If Trump's elected, you're going to have a real ugly series of political battles. But he'll basically be used, I think, to delay things, to hold back the forces of darkness for about a dozen years. It kind of put a little delay on it. And I think that's what I see. I think that it's unbelievable what time we're living in. I'm just telling you. You can't stop Bible prophecy, but you can slow it down. And I think that's where we're at. It's either going to accelerate or take a little pause for about a dozen years.
You know those giant locusts with iron breastplates that are talked about in Revelations?
Yes, I do. The breastplates, yes.
What is that referring to?
Well, you know what? That's been tossed around a lot. Some people have seen it as new technology, military aircraft, with the tails, scorpion tails, and I've heard that theory for a long time. And other folks see it as an actual demonic forces that will actually be affecting people and hurting people. And when you start talking about the Nephilims and these are things that are going to crawl out of the bottomless pit. The Bible, when the pit of hell is opened. So, those are two different theories. It could be one or the other, to be honest with you. I can't put my finger on that exactly. I lean more toward it being some type of military technology, to be honest. Because a lot of times what John saw in Revelation or Daniel saw in his dreams, where they tried to explain it the best they could based on what it looked like a scorpion to them, without knowing the new technologies that would come, that man would be able to fly and do different things. So I really believe it is some type of military capability that they saw. And I lean more that way.
Well, Paul, it certainly was an honor to have you on the show with us. I appreciate you spending some time here. I would like to let our listeners know Paul actually is on Blog Talk, live stream, Roku, mobile app, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. It's just an absolute honor, Paul. Is there anything you'd like to share with us before we close out tonight?
Well, I appreciate, first of all, the invitation, Rex. I really do. And I really enjoyed your interview. I think you're one of the better interviewer folks that I've ever been on a show. I mean, so doing an interview, you did a great job. I think very classy, very, very intellect, and you have your bases covered. You really got a good handle of what's going on. And so I thank you for the invitation. I really do.
Thank you so much.
And for the people that are out there listening, look, I'm going to tell you Jesus is the way. And it's obviously I'm going to say that to you. But I want you to do something for me. Stop a minute and ask yourself, how many things that are happening right now the Bible said would happen? How many things that are happening was already told by men 2,000 and 3,000 years ago? And if the very things, almost to the detail, are happening, then it would be it would be very prudent for any of us and all of us to then take a double look at the Bible and ask ourselves, you know, there's no other book ever written in the history of mankind that could have predicted what we're seeing today from such a long time ago. And if that's the case, and the reality is here, then it would be very important to consider Jesus Christ as your personal Savior and to turn toward Him, because His love for all of us is overwhelming and His grace is sufficient. So I would ask you to do that and accept Christ.
Well, once again, it certainly was great to have you on the show, Paul. Make sure to be safe and keep us informed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rex. God bless.
God bless. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this edition of Leap Project. I am your host, Rex Bear, and tonight we have special guest, Pastor Paul Begley. Paul Begley Prophecy is dedicated to understanding today's world events from a biblical perspective. With more than 8,000 videos available to watch on YouTube, Pastor Begley has 126,000 subscribers, reaching 100,000 plus people a day. Also, Paul can be heard on Blog Talk, Roku, Livestream, mobile app, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms. Tonight, we will be discussing politics, current events, the elections, one world government agenda, also insider information Paul has on Planet X, or what is referred to as wormwood in the Bible. All of this is intertwined and written about thousands of years ago in the Bible, according to Pastor Paul. If you'd like to learn more about Pastor Begley, check out www.paulbegleyprophecy.com, also YouTube. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight here at the Leap Project, Paul. I know you're a very busy person and appreciate your time. How are you?
Hey, it's great to be here with you, Rex. It really is.
So how long have you had a presence online?
Over 6 years now. I've been every day, doing 5-6 YouTube videos a day. And I've been on YouTube for over 6 years, and I've been doing live broadcasting for over 5 years. So, and I just went on television. I've been on television the last 9 months. I'm on DirecTV, channel 367, every Friday night at 11:30 p.m. Eastern with The Coming Apocalypse, 30-minute show.
Okay, so the coming apocalypse, there's so many people out there today, Paul, that feel they're living in the end times, and they talk a lot about it could be global war, it could be Nibiru, Planet X, it could be some type of, comet or whatever. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know if anybody really knows the exact time, which is what the Bible says, but certainly there are a lot of correlations right now that I could say, wow, there's some serious stuff that's taking place, and maybe I should be prepared. So why did you get into ministries and such? What made you say, hey, I'm going to spend my life and put as much time as I can into waking people up and spreading the word about what I believe in?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. I've actually been preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ for 32 years. But for the first 26 years, I did not teach Bible prophecy at all. I would just say, hey, Jesus is coming back. You might want to get your life right with God. It was, I had a moment when I was praying about doing some evangelism. And I was in prayer, and I said, God, where would you like me to go? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to go about? Because I had been pastoring. And the Lord said to me, get a cup of coffee. Literally, I had this in prayer. Get a cup of coffee, turn on your camera, and visualize 1,000 people. And talk about the current events and how they relate to Bible prophecy. And do that every day. And so I started doing it, thinking, well, first of all, I said, what's YouTube? I didn't even know what, I'd heard people talk about YouTube, but I had never even checked out a YouTube video 6 years ago. So I went and I checked it out, and people were jumping off buildings and painting their face green. I said, what in the world? Why do I want to be on this? Are you serious? And I prayed some more, and the Lord said, do this. And so I started doing it. And then miraculously, Time Magazine wrote an article about me. And The next day I had 50,000 views, and I've never, on one video, and I never looked back again. It's been an unbelievable, amazing, really, tool of evangelism, and it's really waking up the people all over the world. People are waking up to the realization that we are truly living in very precarious times.
Well, and I remember a few years ago, I had the opportunity to speak with you, and one of the videos that you came out with, I think just a few days before we talked, was you were discussing the Bible, and then I think you started talking about the devil, and then all of a sudden the cross behind you falls off the wall. Do you remember that?
I sure do. I'll never forget that. I mean, like I said, in 32 years of ministry, I've never had seen a tangible object move. I had read books. I had talked to guys who've done exorcisms and deliverance. I've heard a lot of different things, but I had personally never seen anything that I would consider a paranormal event. And I can tell you what happened that day. I'm glad you bring it up because my brother-in-law died the day before. I was at his bedside. He was dying with leukemia, and I sat there 12 hours with the rest of the family, and he died. And I prayed and prayed for him. He gave his life to Christ, but it was a horrible death, a horrible ending. So I was exhausted. So the next day, I'm doing YouTube videos the next morning, and I start talking about how they're changing the Bible. There's a new Bible that came out where they were removing the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost out of the Bible. And I was like, how can you do that? I mean, what in the world? Are you serious? And I was like, challenging the devil. And you can still see that video. It's on my YouTube channel. And I challenged the devil. And when I did, this crucifix, which weighed 4.5 pounds and was leaning at a 45-degree angle, it just come up off the wall. I mean, it just come up off the wall. It was one of the most freakish things I've ever seen. And there was no one else in the house. And so I thought, I knew who it was. I knew it had to be the devil. I was challenging him.
He was letting you know he was listening.
Exactly. And you know what it did? When this happened, I was stunned, and I was going to delete the video and just forget it and never tell anybody. All right. And as I got ready to push the button, the Holy Spirit said to me, no, upload this. Don't delete it. Upload it. And so I did. And it's been that video, even though it's not my most viewed video, it's been seen a couple 100,000 times, but it's been the one video that has brought more people to Christ than any video I've ever done. It's unbelievable. So there's a lot of folks who do know there's a dark side out there. They do know that there's a demonic presence. And when they seen that Satan was real, then you got to know God's real also.
There's a lot of books that were taken out of certain context and out of the Bible, I guess you could say, out of the specific Abrahamic canon, like the Book of Enoch and other mystery books they call them, and certain teachings. So do you think that the Book of Enoch is just as legit of a reference as the rest of the books in the canon of the Bible, or do you think it's something different?
You know what? That I've read it, and the Bible does talk about the Book of Enoch. I mean, we have our 66 books in the canon, in the Bible, and yet there's 2 books that it mentioned. There's actually 5 books in the Bible that are mentioned that are not in our Bible. At the time that the canon was put together, the Book of Enoch had not been located. I think they didn't actually find that to maybe around 1843 or something like that. When I read it, it's very interesting, and it could very well be the Book of Enoch that's missing. It could very well be. It gets into the angels, and the angels, teaching the fallen ones, teaching about war and all that. Well, in reality, the demon spirits do have the ability to manipulate people, and they do all the time. And of course, the angels, the angelic host of God, also have the ability to protect us and to go before us. So, if you think about the full concept of the Book of Enoch, it could very well be the book. And so I don't know for sure, but it could be. It could be.
Like the Nephilim that are talked about, the fallen angels that had sex with women here on earth, that, talks about how that was bad. Do you think that there's some truth to that, some validity?
Absolutely. I mean, when you read the book of Genesis in the 6th chapter, it talks about that the sons of God looked upon the daughters of men and saw that they were fair, and they went in unto them, and they bore them children that were giants, men of great renown. And it even says in Genesis 6 that these giants, or these fallen ones, these Nephilim, were before and after the flood. Well, we know this is true because when the children of Israel crossed Jordan with Joshua and went into Canaan, they had to fight giants that made them look like grasshoppers. They were probably, it's estimated, some biblical scholars think, 13 to 14 foot tall. We know there were giants. They had to defeat the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Moabites, the Amaleks. And we know that the Philistines had giants because David killed Goliath, and he was 9'6". So there's no question. There's no question. I've studied this. So it's so when you read the book of Enoch, it does go along with what the Bible already says in Genesis chapter 6.
Now, if we were to go and look at the current times that we're in now, there's so much speculation of World War III, the